Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 Episode 20 genuinely blew me away. An episode this good, popping up this late into a production this broken, is unreal. This episode was really well animated and extremely well directed. So much so that I'll focus a bit more on the direction this time around. Seriously, this episode can hold its own against the best of this season in terms of direction. And that's high praise considering how well directed the standout episodes from this season are. This episode was directed and storyboarded by Yuji.
徳野
This was his first time working on Jujutsu Kaisen, and he brought with him a style of presentation that ranged from delicate to batshit insane depending on the scene. Let's talk about this episode. Make sure to subscribe. The direction really shines near the start. They play around with the colors and the level of saturation here. The flashback looks so vibrant, and compared to that, present day looks drab. Of course, intentionally so. Just look at the difference in Nobara's hair color. It's like the life itself has been sucked out of the scene, out of Yuji, and out of everything around him. Back to the flashback, it's quite interesting. Apparently, some of the drawings are corrected by Season 1 character designer Tadashi Hiramatsu. I lack the eyes required to recognize that stuff. Although the remaining drawings are corrected by AOT Season 4 regular Manabo Akita, and I can definitely see it. I wonder why. I loved the intricate coffee marks on the shirt. Most of it is added by the compositing team. Also, it's funny how all of that carefully placed detail disappears and gets replaced with basic splotches in the next cut. This flashback was brimming with life and energy, a stark contrast to the present. Beautiful drawing here, albeit somewhat macabre. It looks lifeless in the best possible way. The subtle compositing effect on the injured side of her face and the harsh line work, it looks perfect. Dorian Kulo drew the layout and Yuki Kikuchi corrected it. Even the layout is so well drawn. We get some creative, well executed, and somewhat disrespectful shots. I did not need an empty eye socket POV. Some unreal character acting here, also animated by Kulo. There is a lot of line work on Yuji's face, and the more lines there are, the harder it is to animate. The face is fully shadowless and has a lot of detail. As Yuji's mind starts to break, the lines themselves lose their uniformity. They go from these normal looking lines to these stylized, thick, uneven ones. The drawings themselves are really strong, and the consistency between them is commendable. I'm sure the insanely well drawn layouts had a role to play. The action was decent as well. Mahito's facial expressions were really well done. The slow motion shot was well executed, and the slow camera pan added to it. The purple glow was slightly overpowering, but it's not really an issue. It's a shame that the black flash impact frames got ghosted, but I'm not surprised. These cuts were serviceable. They had their issues, obviously. For example, Yuji's face completely freezes when his collar is grabbed. That is not an expression one can hold for a long period of time. Speaking of expressions, the Mahito drawings were really good. Some well-framed shots here, making clever use of shadows and the surrounding scenery. Todo's appearance was interesting. I think it was Kakanied, correct me if I'm wrong. Movement like this, having a frame rate this high, is risky. The insignificant amount of melt is to be expected from shots like these. The flaws are endearing. Todo's body literally jumps up and down for a few frames. Pretty sure that's not intentional. This particular sequence was animated by Kulo, and it was decent for the most part. Direction-wise, it was amazing. Todo's appearance literally brings the vibrance back to this scene. Just look at Mahito's hair before and after Todo's appearance. Even the overhead lights have a stronger presence now. Wonderful framing here. The ground has a fisheye effect, and the sense of space and distance is so well conveyed. A very Goshizono-like shot. The lighting is really well used. Todo is bright, blindingly so for Yuji, who curls up and hides his face. The expressive character acting adds to this scene as well. Some quick but solid action animation follows. The close-up of the mouth looks amazing. Even the stitch is well drawn. We then get a first-person shot. The hair was a nice addition. Also, look at the level of detail on Yuji. The highlights on his hair and outfit are so well drawn. Really loved the subtle digital dust and particle effect they added here. made the scene look more complete. The direction was off the charts. They even used the title card shot from the first opening. It's recomped and framed differently, but I'm pretty sure it's the same shot. So many meaningful visuals here. I can go through all of them, but I won't spoon feed you. This sequence looked insanely good. Another major style shift. The lines are a lot more loosely drawn and the shapes are warped. Of course, intentionally so. The character animation was accompanied by these Shinya Ohira-like speed lines, which look like they were drawn using a crayon. I did not expect something like this from this episode. The distorted Akihiro Ota-like flow-oriented animation was a treat for the eyes. The background is warped as well. It has a fisheye effect and some shifting shapes. The perspective on Mahito is really good. Look how large his foot is compared to his head. Of course, because his foot is closer to the camera. The animator prioritized flow and movement over all else. They used those crayon-like lines as an impact frame without switching the colors. I don't think I've seen that before. The background here is a solid color, which makes it look like the scene is moving too fast for the background to catch up. Also, really well drawn back muscles. Look at the perspective here. Also, speaking of perspective, Holy Mother of Christ, look at this cut. The camera angle is so energetic. Also, there's a ton of detail and highlighting on Mahito's face. His arm is literally broken at several points. That's how warped this cut is. The shapes completely fall apart in the best possible way. Again, animation is all about movement. Mahito's blade turns into a series of stylized lines, and the blue lines provide the perfect contrast. Such a competently animated scene, full of energy. It came out of nowhere. Moving on, we get a few well-drawn slow-motion shots, which is impressive. I'm sure the Black Flash scene looked great. It's a shame I couldn't see any of it. The impact frames were completely ghosted. They look unreal if I go through them frame by frame, but the ghosting makes them look like a mess of colors when seen in motion. Todo is quite hard to draw, more so than the other characters. At least I think so, because the anatomy here was all sorts of f***ed up. Todo developed 5 different back disorders in just as many seconds. We then get one of the most polished looking scenes across this entire series, animated by
Licton
and corrected by Shun. The drawings here were immaculate and the compositing was utterly flawless. The delicate blue glow coupled with the insanely strong drawings made for a spectacular scene. Again, I did not expect a scene this good from this episode. The direction was amazing as well. The focus on the empty seat and the other train moving in the opposite direction as Mekamaru asks Miwa to turn back. Creative stuff. The character acting on Miwa was so beautiful. Every bit of movement was so well drawn. Ridiculously high level of drawings throughout the scene. Phenomenal corrections by Shun. Absolutely stunning. Back to the fight, the animation was decent. A few rough edges here and there, weird character placements and slightly awkward perspectives. Nothing major. Loved the background work here. The ground is perfectly normal and it's completely broken in the very next frame. Also, you can't go wrong with cubic debris. Some of that classic Hayato Kurosaki smoke here with the thick shading. The fight had a decent flow. The cuts were well placed. This shot was quite impressive because of its length, even though some of the drawings did look unfinished. Although Mahito's goofiness made it look intentional. Some decent background animation here, followed by some weird looking backgrounds. They look out of place and not in a good way. The gloss looks unnatural. I'm not a fan. This sequence was stupidly fun. The heavy Yutaka Nakamura influence worked really well with the nature of this scene. The spiky effects and smears on the ground, for example, looked great. The background turns black with these multicolored action lines. The Todo frames were really goofy, but really well drawn at the same time. Sota Yamazaki corrections, I believe. The perspective on the face looks wonderful. Todo travels to outer space for a second. It's just silly. I love it. Although every single impact frame, without exception, got ghosted. There are so many goofy visuals I missed because of the ghosting. It's really unfortunate. Regardless, it was such a wonderful scene. Stupid in the best possible way. The character acting and the camera angles here looked really good, surprisingly so. Some amazing action animation animated by Mephisto followed. The drawings were insanely strong. More amazing back muscles. I'm not complaining. However, it was a bit limited. The loops had a lot of frames and they were interesting to look at, but still. Although this particular cut was really smooth, with a lot of moving elements. Action of the highest level this was. The amount of moving elements on screen was really impressive. Great work. Mahito's facial expressions were so well drawn throughout this episode. Hats off to the staff. This amazing cut, which looks like Kid Shigaraki from My Hero Academia, marks the end of this episode. This was surprising. The fact that the staff is able to pull an episode like this off, despite the atrocious conditions, is truly a testament to their skill and passion. We're almost there, just a few more episodes to go. I hope they can pull through. That's about it. Did you like this video? Check out this other bit of content on screen if you did. Make sure to like and subscribe, and until next time.